Well, the rain is coming down. It's gonna be a wet one, but spring is coming, and so we got to get the garden ready here. And so what I want to walk through today are 3 super easy, super cost-effective DIY raised bed setups that you can potentially be using this season. Now, as we get started here, if you have any questions at any point, leave those down in the comments, because I start every one of my day by answering every question that we get on YouTube here. So you'll probably get an answer from me within 24 hours. And so if there's one thing that I want you to take from this video, it's that a raised bed is simply a structure, any type of structure, that allows us to keep soil in place so that ultimately we can begin growing there. And so with that being said, it can come in a lot of different sizes and shapes and structures. And so to begin diving in with our first DIY raised bed structure, that's our classic 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed. And so to go about building this out, the first thing that we want to do is put down cardboard to serve as the base of the bed. The reason why we're putting down this cardboard is because it's going to block the grass from growing through. My personal preference is to go with 2 to 3 layers of cardboard, because this ensures that there aren't any little gaps in the cardboard that the grass could shoot through from, and it's going to decompose over the course of about 9 to 12 months, meaning that it's going to be fully gone for our second season. All right, so the cardboard is down, and so the next thing we need is the wood. And what we need for this type of bed is 2 8-foot pieces of wood and 2 4-foot pieces of wood. And these can be pressure treated, not pressure treated. Both options are totally fine. And my personal preference on this front is for them to be at least 8 inches in height. And so the reason why we want them to be 8 inches in height is so that we can build a really nice deep soil so that our plants have plenty of room for their roots to be sprawling into. The more soil, the better. Now, once you have those pieces of wood, all that you need to do is now put them over top of the cardboard and begin screwing them together on each of the ends. And now some folks like to use some kind of braces throughout to kind of keep them from bowing. It's not something that I've done personally, and I haven't had any issues with the bed warping or taking on odd shapes by not having those braces in place. So I literally just go with the 2 8-foot pieces of wood going along the side and the 4-foot pieces as the ends. Perfect, so the bed is now all connected, and all we have to do is fill it up with some soil now. And this is where you could absolutely go with 100% compost. That's that Charles Dowding no dig, no till method. Or you could do a bit of a soil blend, working in some vermiculite, perlite, etc., which we talk about in our Prepping Your Soils video. And so I'm actually going to pause there on filling this bed up. And you might be wondering, why am I not filling it up all the way? Well, that's because I actually don't want to have a raised bed here. And so you might now be wondering, why did you build a raised bed there? And I did that because I needed to show you how to make a 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed. And I love you all very much. So I decided to make it, and then I'm just gonna disassemble it later today. But I promise that in our second bed, I'm gonna show you it filled all the way to the top. So just before we get to that, if you're enjoying the content that we're putting out there, trying to make gardening as easy as possible for you, even if it means building things that we then just immediately disassemble, then go ahead and subscribe, because we put out new videos like this every single week. But let's begin diving into our second DIY raised bed. Okay, now take a look at this raised bed here that I have in my backyard as a little herb box. And it is way different dimensions than that standard and classic 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed. So our second DIY raised bed is a custom sized raised bed. And so this one here is about 2 feet by 4 feet. And last year when I did my compost versus soil blend experiment, that was a 4-foot by 4-foot raised bed. And so the beauty of these custom sized raised beds is that you can use kind of any reclaimed or repurposed wood that you might have on hand. So last year when I took the fence out from my backyard, I've now got all of these panels that will be perfect for making raised beds at some point. But for today, what I actually want to do is disassemble this bed that I had from last season to move it closer to the rest of my raised beds. And the reason why I'm moving it for this season is because now that I've taken out that fence, my backyard gets a lot more sun. So I'm gonna be able to move it into an area that now gets pretty good sun. And so in this instance, all that I'm going to do is first put the cardboard down where I'm looking to place the bed. Then I'm going to go ahead and begin disassembling it. And to do this, I'm just using a hammer and pitchfork to pry the pieces apart so I can move them over to the new area. And now all that I need to do is essentially just reassemble it in the new area. All right, so just before I put the bed into place here, I grabbed a couple of pieces of 2x4s that are the exact same length, 8 feet, and I placed them down. and it feels like it's just a little bit too large and too long for this space. So before we reassemble them, I'm just going to cut them down a bit.
All right, so the wood is cut and all we have to do now is reassemble the bed.
And to do this, I'm just going to bring the pieces of wood over and hammer them together with new nails.
How good is that? So last thing that we need to do is fill this baby to the top because I didn't do that for you in the first one. Okay, got a sweat going just about there. To top it off, finish it off, I'm going to add about 1 to 2 inches of fresh compost for this season. All right, so how good is that looking? And so we are all filled up, ready to go. Just before we move on to our third one, which is my favorite of the raised beds, one last thing you might be wondering about is what to do with the cardboard that's out the sides. And there's 3 options on that front. You can leave it as is, and it's going to prevent any grass from kind of creeping underneath and in. You could cut it off for a nice and clean look, or you could staple it to the side of the bed for the season to protect the bottom, and then at the end of the season, go ahead and cut it off. But everything that we've covered so far has essentially been a different kind of shape of a box. And so what if you were wanting something that had a little bit more character in it? And so our third raised bed option is a contoured raised bed. And this is something that I've done a lot of in my yard. I really like the aesthetic of it. And the best way to go about doing it is by utilizing rocks. And the beauty of utilizing these rocks is that we can kind of mold them to whatever shape we want, either from a function or from an aesthetic perspective. And so let's take a look at my front yard where I pulled out all of this grass from last year. And what that means is that we don't need to put cardboard down this time, which is super awesome. However, the ground beneath is just the backfill for the house. And so it is full of just sand and silt and clay and really not ideal for growing. So what we need to do is begin working organic matter directly into this area. And so what I'm going to do, even before doing any of the contouring and shaping, is just grab wheelbarrow and wheelbarrow of compost, get it down into this area. And it's at this point, this first season of establishing a bed, that I do rototill it into the soil. And again, I'm doing that in this instance because we took the grass out and there aren't any seeds that will be popping up or anything along those lines. And so I'm going to try and work down about 6 inches with my rototiller. And all that I'm doing with this is trying to incorporate as much organic matter as possible. And this is going to create a really, really beautiful foundation for our soil to build on year over year. And so as we can see here, I mean, it really just ate all of that up, made quick work of it. So let's add some more.
I got a fever, and the only prescription for compost.
Okay, time for one final till. All right, we're getting there. Starting to lose a little bit of light. The only thing left to do is to get those rocks down. So gonna get to it. And so all you have to do is literally just line them up, push them in, compact the soil back against it, and they ain't going anywhere. Oh, how good does that look? Come on. That is nice. Woo. Wow, what a big 2 days getting all of this shot, but take a look at that. I love this setup so much. I think aesthetically it looks really, really beautiful. But then on top of that, it's just so functional, right? I was able to build the outline of my barefoot path by utilizing them, which I never would have been able to do with wood. So I'm a huge fan of it, and as the seasons go on, I can add a second layer just as I did in the back and continue to bring in more and more soil to build a larger base for the plants to be growing in. So folks, it has been a huge 2 days for me getting this all filmed. I really hope this has been helpful, and again, that the key takeaway is that all a raised bed is some form of a structure that keeps soil in place. So if you have any questions, leave those down in the comments. I'll be sure to get an answer over to you. I can't wait to be growing with you this season. Go get those hands real dirty. I'll catch you soon.